The countdown has officially begun, y'all. In 6 days, I am going to be heading to Tanzania to climb the tallest mountain in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm so excited. On IG, I actually asked my audience questions that they had for me because I have been prepping, learning, doing training in the past 3 months and wanted to answer any questions anyone has had. With the many questions I received, y'all, I ended up putting it in a jar. We're gonna have some fun with it. So I put all the questions here and we're gonna go through each of them. If you are someone who is just interested in my why I'm climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I actually created a blog post all about it. I'm gonna be climbing for my 37th birthday, which is gonna be January 11th. So I'm climbing the 7th of January to the 14th, so we'll be actually climbing a whole mountain on my birthday, and I couldn't think of a better time. So I'll share that blog post, that Substack post below, if you want to get a little deeper into understanding my why. I get a little deep on it, so enjoy the read. All right, so let's go through some of these questions. I'm gonna mix it up. It's gonna be so out of order, so I'd say stay for the journey, for the ride, because they're really great questions here, and I'm excited to take you guys on this journey. All right, and shout out to everyone who shared questions or asked questions. This is very helpful. Okay, who are you climbing with? Will you have a guide? Great question. So I am actually going to be climbing with Thompson Trek. They have been in the trekking game for over 40 years, and I was connected to them through a good friend of mine who I went to BC with. Shout out to Ashley, and she did this trek last year. So the opportunity presented itself for me to be able to go with them. And let me tell y'all, this matters. Like, who you choose to go on this trek with matters, because what they provide could make or break your experience. So I'm going to be answering these questions, and even as I answer these questions, I'm going to refer to the things that naturally come as a part of this experience in this package. Thompson Trek has been incredible from the get-go, making sure that I have all the knowledge, all the preparation items that I need, so that I feel the most confident, not only in the training and prepping process, but also knowing what to pack to be the most prepared, because I've never done this before, and they are just an email away. There's just a lot of things they provide. Again, I'll go more into it. Will we have a guide? Yes, that's a part of the experience as well. I will not only have a guide, but a porter as well, and I'm gonna be going with a group of some other folks who I haven't met yet, but a porter is actually gonna be helping me bring my day pack. So I won't have to have the really big day pack on me, and this is something that was highly recommended. They're like, set your ego aside. Anyone who I know that went was like, get the porter. So this person is gonna be pretty much my right hand. I will have a smaller bag, but the bigger day pack, and then the duffel bag will be taken care of by the team, and the day pack by my porter. So I'm very excited to just be able to focus on the climb itself. And yeah, that's what's happening. That's what's going down. All right, let's see what else we got. Are you camping out? Yes. It is outdoors. I'll definitely share a picture here so you can get a glimpse of the tent, but we are going to be camping outdoors. This is gonna be 7 days. The company, again, I'm gonna refer to them, they're actually gonna be helping build the tent. So by the time we get to each campsite, the tent's already gonna be set up for us. So it's really nice, again, to just be able to focus on the trek itself. Now, let me tell you, that definitely makes me nervous, because I'm like, okay, outdoors. Now, I've never done outdoor camping for more than a day. So 7 days is quite a bit of time, but I know I can do it. And I do feel prepared, and have been thugging it out in the cold to feel the most prepared as I could be for it. What foods are you packing? So another thing for Thompson Trek, I don't need to pack as much food because they're providing the meals. They are gonna be providing breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. So what I'm just focused on bringing is more of just like snack items that I really love, that could help me with energy, that could just be a favorite snack of mine, since I'm gonna be climbing for 7 days. So I am going to be bringing protein balls, like peanut butter balls, which I found, and they're delicious. They're yummy. It's something I can take. I also got to be cognizant of how much I bring. So with the Machame route, which is what I'm going on, it will be 7 days. I'm limited to 26 pounds for my duffel bag that I'm bringing things in. So I got to be really cognizant of how much I'm bringing. Listen, I could easily hit a 50 pounder, but I'm going to have a whole nother video about packing, and I'm going to take y'all on that journey. But I've really had to be really intentional about what I bring. This does include snacks. I'm also going to add some gummies. I'm a gummy bear girly, and worth bringing some sweets, but they're going to be providing a whole lot, and they have a whole menu. I'm also gluten-free, so knowing that they accommodate that as well, again, matters what company you choose to go on this trek with, because you want to make sure that they can cater to your needs on the mountain. So there's that. Let's see what else we got. Oop, I lost one. Okay. We're gonna go deep. We're gonna go deep on this one. What does training look like for this climb? Y'all, this has been a big one for me. Now, I will say I've officially been training for 3 months. This 3 months is like, okay, Ari, you're committed, you're disciplined, you are doing it. But I technically started in September, because right now we're in December. But that was me like, oh, I'm just gonna do strength training workouts. I am going to go on hikes wherever I can. And I was doing a ton of travel. So that was another one, was how do I fit that in? And one thing you'll know about me is I am not hesitant to get the help I need if I don't know what it is to be the most successful. So even as I started, I'm like, you know what? Yes, I'm a trainer, but I've never done this. Like, yes, I maybe do strength training, but I'm sure there are other things that I should take into account. And really what was top of mind for me too is, Ari, you have 10 screws and a metal plate in your left ankle. Your ankle mobility is boo-boo in your left ankle. What does it look like to make sure you're actually prepared for that? What does it look like to make sure your mobility is on point? What does it look like to make sure your lower body is strong in a way that will actually help during the trekking, right? The climbing and the downhill. So I'm sharing this because this led me to have that moment where I'm like, I think it's time to find a coach. Now, I spent a ton of time on IG and even TikTok just getting advice from those coaches who are giving different tidbits on exercises you can do. And I actually ended up really loving one of the women who I bought her book, so I have it here. Her name is Kate Seelman, and she wrote a book, Train Smarter, Climb Higher. She is a sports scientist, mountaineering coach, in the midst of getting her master's in performance psychology. She's a boss lady. She's currently based in Germany, but grew up in Zimbabwe. And I'm like, you know what? I just loved her style, and what's really big for me whenever I'm looking up for any coach, right? In this case, it's a physical coach. There's an activity that I'm working towards, but like if it's a business coach, if it's a wellness coach, what have you, I always make sure that their way of coaching is one that aligns with what I love and value. So in her case, and I searched other coaches, she had a whole framework, and that's a big one for me. Like, what steps are you going to take me to? I am practical. I am technical, tactical, all of it. And I'm a whole Capricorn. It sounds like I'm a Capricorn. Yeah, because I am. And I knew that I wanted someone to actually take me through a process that works. It did help to also know that she has a whole book and how she spoke about mountaineering and the things you need to do to prepare for. She broke it down in a great way. Now, yes, this book is incredible, but I'm like, you know what? I want it customized to me. Like, I want a customized training experience. So reached out to her on IG, booked some time with her to have a discovery call. From that discovery call, it was very clear that she was a good coach for me. And I will say, just being a Black woman in this space, how she spoke, she just asked some like really, really good questions up front, right? It wasn't just, what are you training for? She really wanted to know my why. And in the discovery call, when I told her my why, she really loved how I spoke about how this was bigger than me, right? Like I felt like I was called to do it now. And it was based on where I am in my life, where I'm like, okay, I want to be a beginner again. What does it look like to not know something and have to learn it from scratch? What does it look like to be curious and even experience imposter syndrome, right? And then the other part of it was me being a Black woman and me not seeing many people in my circle or communities doing something like this. To be honest, listen, when I first told people I was doing it, they were like, girl, of all the things you could do, you want to climb a mountain. And it's such a perception like this, it's things white people do. Okay, great. But like, I want to take part in this because it's going to physically challenge me, it's going to mentally challenge me. And this is the highest point in Africa. This is symbolic in so many ways. So when I had told her about how I felt like this was bigger than me, she absolutely loved that. And we spoke deep about it. And I'm like, okay, this is the person I need. And her being a white woman, how she naturally spoke about this and just spoke life into me of how much I belong in this space, and there's going to be things I don't know, and that's what she's there for, had me like, yes, yes, yes. So I wanted to share that because this is where it started, investing in myself and reading books and just learning. Now, what does training look like for this climb? So ultimately, she put together a plan for me, which had different forms of movement. Now, what was key was definitely cardio. So think zone 2, where I'm working on my endurance, getting my heart rate up, while I'm not going to be running going up the mountain. If you've ever climbed up steep stairs, if you've ever climbed anything, you know that it requires endurance, right? Your heart rate is going to go up. So getting my body into a mode of doing that more, because I do strength training. Cardio wasn't something I did as much, but this really helped me step my game up. So the different form of movements, one is cardio. That looked like running, that looked like cycling, that looked like a Stairmaster. Stairmaster really only happened when I traveled and there was a gym that had it. But really what I wanted to make sure is that I had what I needed here. So it helped that hubby and I recently bought a home, and the very first project that we prioritized was the home gym. And this was actually before I even knew I would be climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. It's mainly because this is the nature of my work. So what helped was thinking about the things that we needed, or I needed for this climb. I ended up investing in indoor bike. Found that through TikTok. I didn't need like a really expensive one like the Pelotons or any of that, because we have a big TV in the space. So I just needed a bike. I got a plyometric box, which was a big one because lots of emulating what it looks like to climb and stepping up. So you'll see that I just did different forms of movement in that way to just challenge my lower body and get my legs and ankle ready for it. The other was high intensity interval training. That speaks for itself. And again, these are things I was able to do right at home, whether it's adding dumbbells, whether it is doing body weight. This is a mix of the strength, but then also getting my heart rate up. There's also walking, being on my feet more, getting way more steps in than I usually do. I tend to do a lot of sitting because of the nature of my work. So really had to be intentional about walking. If it's like walking and laughing around the house or just going outside, and the colder it got, the harder it was. So I had to really learn about layering and bundling up so that way I can get those steps in. The other is mobility. So I'm coming into this experience with some really tight hips, but also I have 10 screws and a metal plate in my left ankle. And as I think about what I need to strengthen, I was definitely humbled on the first exercises she gave me. I thought my left ankle was stronger, but I realized I've been babying it and I needed to challenge it. But I've come a very long way on the mobility front and love where I am. The other was strength training. That is my bread and butter. So mix of lower body, but then upper body and core is also important. While I will have a porter holding my heavier bags, I still wanted to train in a way that if I needed to carry it or just having a stronger core in general, I would be able to do so. And then the other was hiking. This was actually really awesome because wherever I had the opportunity to explore a new place. So for example, I went to Bali because I hosted a retreat and I was like, you know what, while I'm here, I'm gonna climb a mountain. So I climbed Mount Batur, which was a very steep 2-hour climb. But that just allowed me to explore in a different way. My husband and I, we moved to Baltimore, so being able to explore the different parks in the areas that had trails, that was really fun. And hubby, so supportive. He was like, yeah, babe, not doing the climb, but I will be with you on every place that you want to go while you train. So was able to do that as well. And yeah, that was my long answer to what does training look like. But I feel like that was the most common one. So I will say I received a lot of questions. So what I did was combine the questions in a way that allowed me to answer it. This one was tip top. So I probably had over 30 questions related to training and what that looked like. Again, mine was very specific to where my body's at. Some things more general, but yeah, definitely worth it. Do I have something in my hair? Okay, I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, let's keep it going. Let's keep it pushing. Okay. What are you going to be eating on the journey? I will have meals provided. It's really important on this journey that we stay fueled and hydrated. One thing that they also told us is, it's the norm with the higher you go up in altitude, the more your appetite may be suppressed, but we still have to force ourselves to eat something and drink plenty of water because we need it for energy. We need it for the climb. I did want to share, where is my phone? Let me grab my phone. I did want to share a glimpse of the menu. Again, I want you to know how it's going down for these meals. So Thompson Trek is going to be providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks. And I took a screenshot of the menu because I need y'all to know what we're rocking with. This is really bothering me. I feel like a flake right here. Okay, random. Okay, so sample menu, breakfast options, eggs made to order, sausage, toast, hash brown potatoes, banana bread, muffins, oatmeal, fresh fruit, hot coffee, tea, cocoa. Yeah. Lunch, and again, these are just sample menus, leek and potato soup, homemade falafel, pasta salad, salami, fresh fruit. Then there's an afternoon tea if we want cookies, popcorn, roasted nuts. For dinner, pumpkin soup, Italian style lasagna, green bean salad, pineapple cake. They are doing their thing. So the way it's going to be also set up is they're going to have a food tent where there's a table, there's chairs, and we'll be able to eat like we were eating at a dining table. Mind you, take into consideration that we are climbing. So they have many folks that's a part of the journey, that's on the team, that are trekking all these items up. So they're setting up camp for us when we arrive there and making sure we have the food we need. So they're bringing all this stuff up the mountain. Impressive. Yeah, exactly. So this is why the company you choose matters, because this does not look like this for everybody. Okay, so I will share that. All right, next question. Let me make sure, did I accidentally, did I answer that already? Okay. Oops. This is fun. Oh, what are you afraid of most? What are you most nervous about? So I combine these questions because there were definitely a few folks who asked this. So I'd say there are three things that's top of mind of what I'm afraid of most or nervous about. One is the cold, y'all. I do not like the cold. I was born in January, but deep down, your girl just love some heat and humidity, okay? And it's giving Caribbean girl at heart. But yeah, the cold. And knowing that we're gonna be going across different climates, it's gonna be as cold as minus 15 degrees. So what I've really had to learn is layering. And I will say, with this being the first thing I'm sharing that makes me nervous, what's equally as important is with this nervousness, knowing how am I going to work towards making me less nervous in this preparation. So that for me looked like going on cold ass walks, 20 degrees outside, purposely going on walks when I know the temperature is the lowest here in Baltimore, going when it's windy, because those are going to be the conditions that I will be going through as we get higher up in the mountain, especially when we're summiting. So I've been doing that. I also know that I tend to be iron deficient. I got tested. I am not anemic. However, my numbers are typically low. So I went and got a blood test, and this was about 2 months ago. So this helped me again to think about what are the things I need to do, whether it's in my diet, whether it is supplements, to get my iron levels popping, like where it needs to be before this climb. So got more consistent and disciplined with my daily iron pills. Also have been prioritizing foods that are high in iron. One of my go-tos is my beet smoothies, but just even using my nutrition background to think further about what that looks like, knowing that I'm typically iron deficient. The second thing that makes me nervous is the long distance on my ankle and my knees. One, I have 10 screws and a metal plate in my left ankle. And this is something, I mean, this injury happened in 2009. And as I get older, as life progresses, it's always going to be something that I need to better or improve. Like I can never be like, okay, 5 years has passed, I'm good now. No, that's just what it is. In the cold weather, I deal with it being stiff. Sometimes when I'm walking on it too long, I can deal with inflammation. So me going on these long walks, me challenging it in very many ways during this training is helping me prepare for just that. But the long distance on it is something that made me nervous because we're going to be at its most walking a 10-hour day, and that's like the summit. But on average, probably 5 to 6 hours a day of walking. So that made me nervous. But again, part of the nervousness is me knowing what I'm going to do during the prep to combat it. And then the other is my knees. So earlier this year, I had a pretty serious knee contusion. Actually, both of my knees went through a crisis, both while playing flag football. So I started playing flag football locally, co-ed. And in both cases, I don't know what's up with these men's, but let's just say my nickname was Ray Lewis. Like, listen, we 37, but we still moving like we played rugby in college, okay? But in both cases, it was two guys that took my knees out. Now, I still move pretty fast. I'm a fast one. And one of them was me being in the air. Now, mind you, flag football, we're supposed to be pulling flags here and like just come full force into my knees. So the first time wasn't a bad knee injury. It was just one that did require a brace. The second one had me out of commission for a month or two. And I had to go to rehab to work on it. Best decision I did make. And my recovery ended up being a lot quicker because I was super disciplined and committed. However, this made me nervous because when I think about Mount Kilimanjaro, lots of climbing, lots of pressure on the knees, especially you feel it more downhill. Most people think it's uphill, but your knees really need to be locked in and show up for you when we're going downhill. So that made me nervous, but to combat that, made sure that my training continued, my mobility exercises, the things to strengthen my knees were like top priority. And then third is the altitude. When you sit and listen or hear any stories of like people who've not climbed or who didn't make it to the top, is usually one of two things. One, physical, making sure we're combating that. But then the other is the altitude. And the reality is altitude isn't something you can entirely train for. So I've heard stories of friends who were impacted. They are some of the most athletic people, and the altitude took them out. They may have still made it to the top, but it was a hard knock life getting to the top. So one of the things that I am doing, I am going to be, I've already got the prescription for Diamox, which is highly recommended, which helps with high altitude sickness, but that isn't something you can necessarily prepare for until you're in those conditions. So what I am doing at most is like, okay, let me make sure that my breathing endurance is top tier. I did also buy this book that was recommended by my coach called The Oxygen Advantage, by Patrick McCohen. And this is actually really cool because it focuses on simulating high altitude training to heighten athletic performance, but it also has been scientifically proven to help improve your sleep, focus, and concentration, eliminate asthma symptoms, and lose weight easily and maintain weight loss. But those are three things that make me the most nervous. But in all cases, the way my mind works is giving Capricorn is like, okay, if you're nervous about it, what are you gonna do to make sure, even if it's not the most perfect experience, because listen, climbing a mountain is hella hard, like 7 days. But what can I do that I have the most control of, and that is prepare. So that's the vibes. All right, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep pushing. Oops, this one fell out. We'll do this one. How are you organizing yourself? Because I'm a whole Capricorn and people know that I love to organize. So for starters, Thompson Trek, I mean, they have held it down. They have a whole preparation guide that literally breaks down any and everything that has to do with the experience, from the flight booking to the visas, so the logistics, to what I'm packing, and that, like, a hefty list of what's needed for packing and why. I could also rent items, to any of the snacks and foods I need to bring, to the first aid kit things that are recommended. I mean, they have held it down to understanding the different climates and what I'll need and the food. So I want to start there because this whole list is where it started for me. And then I also have my coach who've also recommended things from her book, but then also we meet and have conversations about what makes sense to pack based on my specific needs. So for example, I'm someone who gets cold hands and cold feet. So it's like, okay, well, maybe you want to bring these like heated socks, like bring wool socks, but make sure you have a pair that's heated. So that way you have that option if your feet are really cold. With that said, also I have an operations manager, shout out to Jasmine. And what she did was help me add this to Notion. So we have this entire checklist. Like the list is so long for the things that's needed. Although you can't pack a lot, that over 26 pounds, there's still a lot that's needed. And these items tend to be smaller, but like even as simple as like biodegradable poop bags, right? Because we got to go to the bathroom, right? And we can't be like littering all over the mountain. So things like that. I mean, again, we're going to have a whole separate video on that, so I won't go too much into that. But Jasmine set up Notion for me. So as I'm buying the items, I can check it off. As I need to do things before deadlines, like my visa for Tanzania, it is clear as day what's there. So Notion has helped me. Y'all, in the midst of doing all this, I have been trying to balance family, social, work, business, because I'm going to be gone for a solid like half a month. So needing to plan for that and setting things up in Notion has been so clutch. So yes, organizing myself, and maybe I may turn it into a template that if anyone else wants to leverage, I'm happy to do that. So if this is something that you're interested in, if you're seeing this video a week from now or a year from now, definitely drop in the below. If you are interested, I'm happy to turn it into a template that you can leverage as well if you're a Notion user. All right. We're making moves, friends. We're making moves, and I'm dropping things. All right. Are there animals or climates that you have to consider? Okay. So I'm going to answer the animal one because this one's a quick one. Animals are not something we have to worry about. I know the number one thought is like, oh my gosh, you're going to be dealing with bears and mountain lions. Not where we are in Tanzania. Actually, the higher the altitude, the more boring and less sightseeing that it will be outside of nature, of course. But animals aren't living that high up in altitude. So the most excitement that we'll get for animals is really on maybe day 1 and day 2, where we may see like monkeys and birds, but there isn't any risk or concerns for those type of animals. Very different than safaris. So I think people are also thinking of safaris. That's on the other side of the mountain. Second question being climate you have to consider. So the trek that we're going to be doing, we're going to be going from pretty much the equator to the North Pole. So we're going to be hitting different climates, about 4 to 5 different climates, and it's going to range from minus 15 degrees to the 80s. So what's really important that I have to take in consideration is layering. And y'all, this is like the number one thing that I've really been learning about is what it looks like to layer. And I think even as a person who is really cold all the time, I've realized that growing up, I'm gonna get real vulnerable here, but growing up, sometimes when we'll see people who don't look like us with like light jackets, it's like, oh, they're not wearing clothes. They don't have much clothes on. And I realized that the type of layering that they have on make it so that they don't need the really bulky jacket. So when I think about the bulky jackets that I grew up on growing up, think of like the Rockawares, the Baby Fat, the Fubus. We had some bulky down jackets, right? Now, what I'm learning for this trek is like, well, what does it look like to have a lighter jacket that is actually the warmest? So there's one Under Armour jacket that's like 800 FMP or something. I might get that wrong and butcher it, but it feels really light. It's a very light jacket. When I put it on over a base layer and I will go outside, I'm hot. I'm burning up. So I'm like, So I'm learning about layering and what that looks like for my hands, my feet, tops and bottoms, to make sure that I'm catering to each climate. So what's going to be really big is for these climates, like having the base layer, having a fleece, having a mid-layer jacket, and then also having the jacket that's going to be the bulkiest, which I'm renting, that will help with like wind and is waterproof. That is going to change the game, especially as we go up the summit where it's going to be windy and it could rain. Hoping that it doesn't, but we do have to pack a poncho as well. So we're going to be, I wrote these notes down: rainforest, alpine desert, and then as we get toward the summit, up the summit, Arctic. So that's like the minus 15 degrees and the wind. So think about being in Chicago, if you've been in Chicago, windy city, and it being hella cold. So things that I've had to invest in, again, separate video, but I'll just share it here, is even having a balaclava where it's like covering your face and having glasses because the wind is going to be, we got to prepare for that. So that's the question on climate. Layering is going to be so important. So important. How long is the climb? So the climb is going to be 7 days. This one is a faster route, but usually what comes with a faster route is sometimes it can be tougher, right? We're doing more in a single day. And I'm doing what is called the Machame route. So we're going to go up 5 days and come back down 2 days. I'm going to be leaving Baltimore on January 5th, arriving to Tanzania on the 6th. That day is going to be one to just get settled in. They're going to check our belongings, so just make sure we have everything we need. So every person is going to go through this check process, and then we start out. We set out on the 7th, and then I'll be climbing from the 7th to the 14th. So that'll be it. So as far as what to know, it's going to be 43 miles round trip for this route, the Machame route. Some days could range from 2 to 3 hours to all the way to 10 hours walking a day. But I'd say based on this chart, we're looking at 5 to 6 hours on average. So the climb is going to be a long one, which is why it was really important to make sure we do have the layers and things that we need, making sure that the hiking boots are the most comfortable. So yeah, that is how long the climb is. Oops, why'd I put it back in? My bad. Was this it? All right, I dropped it in here. I may end up running into it again. So excited for you. Thank you, boo. What will you do at the top? All right. Y'all know, if you don't know, I'm a Caribbean girl at heart. And if you know us, you know we bring our flags everywhere. Like can you imagine what my college graduation was when the Trinis just brought the big old flag and they just waving it? It's known when we are in a space. So I will absolutely be bringing my Trini flag. I'm not going to be bringing my big one, not the biggest one, but I'm bringing a Trini flag. And that is going to be one that I will be at the top. If I could play some music, I'll dance it out. Again, I really feel like this is going to be a spiritual journey. And reaching to the top is truly like the highest point that I'll probably be, unless I climb Mount Everest, but it is the closest that I'll be to the universe, to God, right? So I want to embrace what it means to be at the top. Culture, courage, community, all of it. So I'll be bringing my flag, and I'm sure there's going to be other people there. So whatever comes up at the top, it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold up there. So whatever I do, I got to make sure it's worthwhile. All right, this might be the one that I put back in by accident. Let's see. Okay. So what does this journey mean to you? I referenced my blog. Hands down, that gives the most real view of why now, why this, and again, it being bigger than me. yes, I'm excited to do this. I want to prove to myself that like I could do this at the ripe age of 37, but also this is a space that I'm super new to, and I knew I was going to be challenged mentally, physically. But then representation, I want young Black girl or other women my age to look at this and be like, if she did it, I can too. Because oftentimes when we're in these, when we look at National Geographic, when we see these type of activities, these outdoor activities on the internets, in media, it's very rarely are there people who look like us. And we belong in these spaces too. So this is why one of the reasons why I'm sharing this, because my hope is that it can encourage anyone else to know that like it's capable. Now I haven't climbed yet. This is the pre, but I do think that me having 3 months to prepare for this and not knowing much about this outdoor activity, I feel the most confident and the most prepared being 6 days out. So yeah, heavy why, but again, check out the link below of the blog post and you'll get some more depth there. All right, what else do we got? Something you discovered about yourself. I don't really like running. I mean, I knew this. I'll run if I need to run, but I'm not like the long distance runner. However, what I learned is that I enjoy cycling over running. So I understand the hype for cycling. Investing in the indoor bike was one of, I guess, the best discoveries. I now replaced our bench with the indoor bike, so that way it's room in our home gym. Our home gym is rather small, so making sure we have the equipment that we use the most in it. And yeah, I have been on my cycling flow. I've been enjoying it. I also use Peloton, so being able to ride with Rad and Tunde, being able to also do the bike boot camp is one that I really love the most, where it's this hybrid 50-50 between being on the bike and then being on doing strength training, but really helps with that zone 2. So if I had to choose between running, Stairmaster, any form of cardio, hands down for me, I would choose cycling and then also dancing. But yeah, that's something I discovered about myself. That's how much we got left. We're almost there. What has been your biggest challenge during preparation time? All right, I'd say 2 things come to mind. One, which I expected, imposter syndrome. Absolutely. And this wasn't because anyone made me feel this way. I am just someone who, my toxic trait, Capricorn, I'm like, I'm gonna learn this stuff and learn it quickly. And no matter how much blogs I read, no matter the coach that I have, there's just so much that doesn't seem like a big deal until it becomes the most relevant as this journey. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know that, right? Like, so definitely having imposter syndrome. And I will say, even going into knowing that I was going to go to REI Outdoor, which is like the top retailer space if you want to buy outdoor apparel, equipment, what have you, whatever you need. And the very first time I went there was to get my hiking boots. And y'all, the amount of research I did, I'm like, okay, well, I want to make sure it sounds like I know what I'm talking about and what I need, because I knew I would need help, but I didn't want to go in so green where I feel like I'm judged on like, who's this girl about to do Mount Kilimanjaro? She doesn't even know the basics. I don't know. I felt that, but prior to, no one put that on me, but I think, again, my own doing. So definitely the imposter syndrome. And what my coach constantly reminded me is like, every single person who started hiking or even did Kilimanjaro, like we could use hiking more so, they were a beginner. I'm having this learning curve that I have to figure it out in a shorter amount of time. And it's not like I'm regularly doing this and I'm a part of hiking clubs and have as many people who I can speak to about it, in which that grew, honestly, in the past 3 months. I feel grateful to have expanded my community in that way. But regardless, still had that imposter syndrome. And found myself looking up a lot of information so I could just feel the most confident when I go into these spaces. But thankfully, halfway through, there was a release of that. Like, I'm like, yeah, I don't know this, and I'm going to ask someone to explain it if I go into these stores. Like, that's a part of my journey. And actually, the more I shared that, the more intrigued the person helping me was. Like, me climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Now, granted, I'm also in these spaces. Like, when I go to REI, the few times that I did, never spotted another Black person. I was hands down the only Black person in there. So I think I didn't want to come off as this, like, aloof person, but yeah, I don't know what I don't know. We're all beginners, and my coach, I'm gonna share some words of wisdom she said, but like she had a moment where she was like, "You belong here. Like, please remember that." I'm gonna share that clip.
You're at the beginning. It is completely normal that there's a whole bunch of words and things that you don't know about it. And you are not an imposter. You are supposed to be here. You are supposed to be learning all this stuff.
Thank you.
There's nowhere else that you're supposed to be doing.
Second thing that was the biggest challenge was just balancing work, home, social, family, friends, travel, lots of travel that happened in October, lots of speaking. So there were things I had to say no to in order to be able to say yes to showing up for this training. Because at the end of the day, I'm already committed. Like, it has to happen. And the joke's gonna be on me if I'm going into this not doing the things that I had the most control over. So there were things I had to say no to. So lots of social things. Like now I actually, side note, feel people who are running training for marathons. I'm like, it takes so much time, right? Like sometimes I was training twice a day, in the morning and then in the evening, because typically my workouts are 30 to 45 minutes, but with the small window I gave myself, I needed to up the ante. And my coach was like, some days were looking like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And that meant that I would need to split it between the morning and the evening, or if I did just the morning, that means I started my day later. Thankfully, the flexibility of being an entrepreneur, but that meant that I was working later. So lots of no's that I had to say in order to be able to be the most confident. And yeah, that would probably be the most, especially during the holiday season. Also, I mean, we're end of December. What was also hard was not being able to go home for the holidays. So Christmas is a very big holiday with my family, but the reality is I didn't want to risk traveling and then also getting sick. So I stayed here, but it was definitely very hard because I'm like, oh, technically I got to like quarantine and miss my family, all the FOMO in the world, but I know that there'll be another time I'll be able to see them. But they were just the most supportive. But yeah, that was hard. Almost there, y'all. This is the one I already did. How long is the climb? I knew it was coming somewhere. I'm surprised it got so deep in there. Let's see. How are you prepping your mind? Is co-walks more for mental or physical? So this was a question from a good friend of mine who saw me post about my co-walks on IG, where I'm like, gotta prepare for this. Co-walks ain't it. Now, for me, I'd say this was more of like the co-walks is more of the physical, so I can prepare knowing that I'm iron deficient. However, the mental piece, like how I am working towards that mental resilience, one, having a coach who could speak life into me, especially when I have these feelings. And I think having a coach, I owe it to myself to share the real and raw of those feelings, right? The imposter syndrome I have, the nervousness, any anxiousness I feel, and knowing that no question is silly. So that just helps because I don't want to start creating stories of what it's going to be. Granted, again, I know it's going to be hard, but like, how can I start building that mental resilience? Having the conversations of how hard it is actually helps me. Like, okay, no one's out here being like, you got it, Ari. You're fit. Now, I will say, no shout outs to the people who on IG was like, Ari, like you should be fine. You're already fit. That's not how it works. Like, would you say that to someone who is training for a marathon to be like, oh, you're fit. You do strength training. You could run a marathon without training. No. Most people train for a marathon. And there are some people who don't train and they're like, oh my God, that was the silliest, stupidest thing I've ever done. So yes, I absolutely needed to train, absolutely need to be coached, absolutely need to learn a whole lot. That was one thing that definitely made me feel some type of way where I'm like, yeah, no, that's no friend, no. Another thing I did was wrote a letter to my future self. So I wrote a letter for the after version of me when and I wrote this letter like pretty much when I was really starting the formal training to speak to my future self. And that is something that, I don't know, I wholeheartedly believe in manifestation, and the type of things that I wrote in there was like, I'm so proud of you for completing this, your discipline, your commitment, saying no to be able to say yes to this strength training. Like, and there are already things that I wrote in that letter that already held true in this process, but then also speaking to what it looks like to get through the climb itself. So I wrote a letter, it's in an envelope, I'll bring it with me. And when I get back after the mountain to where we're gonna be staying after the climb, I will read it, and I'm very excited to read it. Yeah, that's another thing. And then, yeah, I think that's just about it. Knowing the real and raw and getting myself mentally ready for it, because it's gonna be an experience, friends. Next one here. Do you have a playlist? Will you be listening to music? So this is a great question. What I do have to take into account is that there's not going to be any outlets for plugging in. However, I did buy a bomb.com charger and will be recharging the different technology I do have because I'm going to be documenting the journey, which I'm super excited for. As far as playlists, I haven't put one together yet, but this was a great idea for me because I'm absolutely going to do that. And if you know me, you know I love all kinds of music, from the dance hall to the hip hop to R&B. So I'm going to create a playlist, and maybe several depending on where I am in the journey. If I need music to fall asleep to, maybe I'll have an R&B playlist. If I need to be amped up on the trek and the climb, definitely some hip hop and soca, dance hall, reggae music. So I'll definitely put that together, and I'll be sure to share it when I do. As far as what else I'd like to listen to, I would love your thoughts if you want to share below any of your favorite podcasts. So what's equally as important for me for music is just listening. I do believe that this is going to be a very spiritual journey for me. And if there's any podcast that you recommend, whether it's around the personal development side, great storytelling side of things. I do love business related podcasts, but I don't want to harp on that too much on this climb. If you have any recommendations, please drop it below. I am all here for it, and I would love to add that. Can you share something you're glad you did while prepping? Oh, this is a good question. I'd say I have three things here. So one was actually going in person for buying some of the things I needed. And two of the items come top of mind. So one was going to REI to get my hiking boots and my day pack. Now, let me tell you, for the hiking boots, actually, I think there's another question that's probably gonna make me go more into the hiking boots. If not, I'm just gonna throw that experience in. I'll throw that experience in. But I'm glad I did that because there were things that I needed to go through finding the perfect shoe for the hiking boots, and just trying to buy one online would have absolutely not cut it for me. And I will hopefully, maybe the last question will cover that. And the same goes for the day pack. I was able to get a full walkthrough. Person who worked at REI, they put like the weight in the bag so I can feel it, see where it lands, see how it buckles in, make sure it's strapped in, because not all bags are created equal. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna buy a backpack like you would online. A day pack, because you're carrying it, it needs to fit well on your hips. It needs to be adjusted that way. There are bags that's specific for men and women. There was just me learning about the different parts of the bag, where I need to pull to tighten. Ain't no way I could have just bought a bag and figured it out, and which maybe I could have, but there was something that instilled more confidence in me. So that just reminded me like, hey, listen, we're in a time where buying things online is fabulous. Love it. It's convenient, but there's some things that are worth shopping in person for the experience. The second was investing in a coach. In this conversation, I've already shared a whole lot about what it has looked like to invest in a coach, and it has been the best decision I made. It really instilled a lot of confidence, removed a lot of the what ifs. There's just more that I know to expect. I'm not having a coach who's just fluffy and being like, oh, you're gonna do great. It's like, Ari, it's gonna be hard. And here's how you're going to prepare for that hard in the best way that you can. And then the other is getting guidance from friends and family. So actually sharing on the internet that I'm doing this, sharing in my group chats. My family have been super supportive. They're like, are you crazy? But we love you. And we knew if there's anyone to do this, it's going to be you. So much love in that way. So also, okay, my mind is like, blah, blah, blah. reaching out to friends who have done this has been really important. So my friend Ashley Wood, shout out to her. She climbed it with this company and she gave me the real and raw about it. We actually did a hike and talk where I asked her questions about her hiking experience. I think I'm gonna just add that as another YouTube video as is in raw, because she goes through her experience too. And it was experience that was hard for her. There are things that she didn't even think would be a struggle. And for some people, they're like, oh no, that can scare you. I'm like, no, tell me what could possibly happen. Even if it may not apply to me or I may not fully be able to prepare for, it's still something that I'm like, heard about this. I knew this could happen. But yeah, surrounding myself with people who have done it. So yeah, there's that. And then let's see what else. What's this last one? It is one that's going to answer the hiking boots. A lesson that I learned. So this is actually very perfect. And this is also the very last one. What I learned with the hiking boots is, I'd say in 3 words, function over fashion. So I'm gonna be honest here. When I see people hiking, I notice that the boots usually aren't the sexiest. And I'm like, why would they choose, are there no cute boots in hiking? Those are it's giving ugly. No offense to anyone who gets the ugly boots, but this is I want to tee up where I landed. So I started going through TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and blogs to basically find different hiking boots for women, because I wanted to have a good idea of what I can ask for, again, doing that upfront research for when I go to REI. This was also going to be my very first time going to REI outdoors. So I'm like, listen, I want to know what I'm talking about. And it made me very excited once I saw the cute shoes. I'm like, oh, the cute boots. It's giving color, it's giving options, it's giving she could look fly on the mountain. So I was very excited about that. And I put a list together. Now, when I got to REI, there was this full wall of boots. I was like, yes, okay, it truly is giving options. Now, once the person who started helping me, shout out to JJ, there were things that he had to analyze about my feet and know the history of both of my feet to determine what boots made the most sense. So I didn't know about this additional layer. I was just like, I'm not shopping for heels here. It's boots, should be good. So one thing that I had to share with him was my ankle. And the reality with my ankle, I could easily be discomforted because I have one of the screws sticking out ever so slightly. So anything rubbing against it is one that could be deeply uncomfortable. The other thing is I have wide feet. So one of my feet, my right foot, has a slight bunion, which makes me in the wider feet category. And then the other is I have big feet. I wear size 10. So let's just say that this initial list that I had with those 3 things taken into consideration brought it down to about here. I didn't have many options. However, many I still kind of had where I ended up trying on 10 different versions. Now, the very first pair of shoes that I tried on, and this one was recommended by JJ, saying this is one that is the most popular. It's very comfortable. When I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is not how I'm trying to be rocking boots on the mountain. It wasn't giving cute, but I knew that there were other options where I was like, okay, pop a color. Okay, it's giving shoe design. And me putting my foot in this one, actually, it was very comfortable. So what I thought was oh, okay, these boots are generally really comfortable. Listen, child. I tried on all of the other 8 ones, and tried them on, walked around, saw how they felt. The 2 things that made it a no. One, my ankle, and that was top. I would try on these boots and the way that it's rubbing against my ankle, I'm like, this is uncomfortable. And that was not something I could sacrifice because I am literally going to be in these boots for hours, over 7 days. So anything that was remotely uncomfortable, it was a no. Yes, breaking in boots is a thing, but usually you'll know up front, there's no breaking in this part of the ankle. It is going to feel that way, and it is not worth that level of discomfort. The other is the width of my shoe. So there weren't as many wide options, but the ones that I did try, I'm like, still feels uncomfortable. And I also have flat feet, so it just wasn't giving. So I tried one after the other, and JJ was so nice and so kind about it. And I was like, man, this wasn't feeling like the more non-sexy joints that I tried on in the first one. So I ended up going back to trying on the Merrells, and I'm like, oh my God, like it was like the biggest sense of relief where I was like, okay, these are it. So I ended up buying these, and like, while they're the unsexiest, they are the most comfortable. Usually these require less breaking in, but I still made sure that I went on hikes to break them in. And listen, your girl was testing it all. She was testing the waterproof. I was putting my foot deep in water, and I'm like, wow, these are like really waterproof. I realized that sometimes I will wear shoes that say they're waterproof, and like I still get a little wetness that seeps through, but like, nope, was climbing through, dropping in, walking across rocks, very comfortable. So that was my learned lesson with the hiking boots is function over fashion without a doubt, because yeah, it just wouldn't be worth being uncomfortable in it. Any other learned lessons? I feel like I shared so much in this along the way, and oh my gosh, we are literally approaching an hour. I think I'd stay there with the learned lessons because I covered a whole lot, which generally are learned lessons in itself. And yeah, y'all, that's it. This is what I got. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I am going to follow up with a packing video where I'm literally just going to be live going through the different things that I am packing for this trek. So for any of you who are going to be wanting to watch this for your own journey or just pleasure and adventure, that you could be woke in what packing looks like for me. But I hope you enjoyed this. Please drop a comment, respond to anything that I have said here, subscribe. I'm going to be creating a playlist for the things related to Kilimanjaro. If you are watching this and you are someone who is excited to do a Kili climb, I love this for you. I love this for us. I hope that the realities of what prepping can look like for me has also inspired and motivated you. Until next time.